Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The roster lock has officially fallen for the Call of Duty World Championship. The teams as they presently are will be the rosters arriving in Vegas in a very short period of time to compete for the big one. But also Doug Censor Martin revealing that Ghosty is supposedly still very much unwell on the OpTic Texas side of things. Apparently Hex doesn't want anyone to know, but Doug reckons that is the case and it is affecting their practice at the moment. Very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Plenty we've got to get into today. Firstly, all the rumours of the last couple of days, again, not really rumours, let's be honest, about Doug and whether he could or would step into the Boston starting team. That seems to be done now, unless he's been signed to a substitute contract over the last few days, because we believe that any player that wasn't competing in a main pro team in Toronto was signable to a team, as we've seen with Snoopy, despite the fact that Snoopy wasn't on a subcontract before he got what I'm guessing is a 10-day contract here, actually, going into the World Championship. And also there was some talk from the OpTic side, you know, what if Scump retired and all this and made the return. But last night, the CDL say this, roster lock, here are your final starting rosters. Now, of course, it's possible for a substitute to come in if absolutely necessary, but I'm guessing if you haven't been signed now or like aren't in position to actually be a substitute for the event, then that is now done and dusted. So these, of course, are your starting rosters that will be competing. We'll see what Octane has to say on this later on today, actually, but he reckons that it's very competitive right now. A lot of these teams are playing very well in practice. Of course, the FaZe team, the OpTic Texas team, the top 5 favourites really here on the left-hand side. Of course, this is based on what seeding order, I'm guessing, actually, yeah, after Subliners beating, well, overtaking Toronto, secures them a more favourable first-round game here against the Minnesota Rokkr. Then Boston is your 7th seed, Surge is the 8th seed. There's a good argument to look at this and say, well, you know, would Vegas have deserved it? I think right now Vegas might be a better team than both Surge and Boston, but unfortunately the early part of the season didn't work in their favour, and these are your 8 teams. But yes, Boston are locked in. There's no Doug, it's Snoopy, it's Awakening, Beans and Kremp. Still mind-blowing they've gone for this, actually, because I've seen a couple of clips from Snoopy over the last few days. The guy is very good, he shoots very straight, he has incredible movement, but his comms aren't really there, right? And this is the thing with a guy like Doug, and it doesn't have to be Doug, right, just as an example, but I mean, Doug is like a LAN veteran. If you watch him play on LAN behind him, he's playing, and then when he dies, he'll look over to Snoopy on his right-hand side. He'll like actually look at his monitor. This is something that Clayster and the other kind of like veterans like to do as well. See what Snoopy's doing, like, you know, just to get a better understanding. And this is things you can do on LAN that you don't have the luxury of doing online. And then they can tell Snoopy, like, you know, right then and there what to do, where to go, this type of stuff. Does Boston have a player that does that stuff on their team as it stands? Do they have someone that can actually communicate things for Snoopy? Because like he's like 18 and cracked Mexican kid. You're not expecting him to have great comms, but it is going to hold them back, right? So anyway, that's well, we'll see what happens first round against OpTic, but definitely that is their plan to take down OpTic like this. I think he's definitely talented enough to cause them some problems, but as the series progresses with the pressure on in front of the fans and, you know, all this stuff, apparently it's going to be the biggest COD event ever in terms of live attendees. So if there's any absolute like cauldron to be put into for your first ever pro game, that is probably it, to be honest. So we'll leave it there for now. Also wanted to mention though, this is a big update with regard to the Overwatch League and potentially the CDL as well. So Adam Adamu says here from the Overactive Media Toronto Defiance side, also works of course with Toronto Ultra, and I met him at the event in Toronto just a couple of weeks ago now. Excited to see what the future holds as we work together and strengthen and grow our game with an agreement with the Overwatch League and Overactive Media. So this has been described as follows, that the outstanding entry fees have been eliminated. The value of this agreement, which includes early payment of the league revenue share, the sponsorship agreement, I don't exactly know what they're getting to with that, we'll see in a second, and the elimination of entry fees is valued at 10.8 million Canadian dollars. So this is really interesting, actually. This is the article they put out here. Leo actually puts this out. I was, you know, lucky enough to meet in Toronto. But what they say is there's some sponsorship deal between the Toronto Defiant and the league. I know that Ben Genesim talked about this effectively as being a vehicle in order to pay them the money back that they feel like they should have. Because what's been happening over the last few months here, especially in the Overwatch League side, is that a lot of these organizations decided this isn't sustainable. We can't pay all of the 20, I think it was 20 million in the OWL and then it was 25 million in the CDL, but they can't pay that money. They can't get that money back. The game is not growing. The league is not profitable. They can't get sponsors. There's so many more issues even in the AWL that we have in the CDL. So they were hiring a law firm to say, look, you promised us XYZ when we signed this contract in the league. None of those things have happened, so, we want to be, reimbursed as a result of this. And this maybe is where it's coming from here, that Activision has said, you know what, to kind of settle some of these issues, they're going to eliminate outstanding entry fees. So we know that this 20 million, 25 million, it's not paid initially, it's not paid like straight up front, right? It's been paid over a period of time. Maybe the team has paid a few mil up front, a few mil the next year, then COVID happened and they said, all right, let's just delay all those payments. And now they're like, all right, actually, maybe let's just not do those payments at all. And this is now the question as to whether this could happen in the CDL at some point. Even Deserto say CDL teams may have outstanding franchise fees cancelled, because if they're doing this in Overwatch, which is what it sounds like from that article, you would imagine it's only a matter of time until we hear similar discussions around the CDL, that Activision say, right, fair enough, we did say it was going to do this in 5 years time, it hasn't, so in order for you not to sue us, then maybe we'll just cut the entry fees. Now, whether that's actually a good thing for the, in an ideal world, the health of the league would be such that all the teams could afford that money and it would all be going sunshine and rainbows. The reality is that's not the case, and this is probably better for the state of the league in that the teams can actually not have to worry anymore about paying the additional, even 10, 15 million, whatever they might still have to owe. That can get cancelled off, and then they can, come to an arrangement of what actually makes more sense. Because let's be honest, 25 million was pretty outrageous. If it was 5, 10 million, that's still pretty big, but, maybe that's what they've paid, and maybe that's what all they will have to pay. And maybe that does pave the way for a system in the future where we actually can try and get to 16 teams. Really difficult to say what the CDL even looks like as and when Microsoft arrive and what this means. And even as Team War says, we're an investor and one CDL decision away from trying to get a franchise spot. So, this is the thing, right? If they were to eliminate outstanding franchise fees going forward, what would that mean for potential new investors coming in? If they were to drop the entry fee from 25 mil down to like 5, 10 mil, like how many more organizations would be interested? Because there's a lot of interest in the CDL right now. There are actually plenty of organizations wanting to get in, but the pricing is not really, it doesn't make it work. But this is a very complicated topic, because if you were to reduce the entry fee from 25 down to like, let's just say 5 million, then the value of the asset those teams have goes down substantially as well. That doesn't look good on their books, but then again, if they haven't had to pay 25 mil to get an asset that was meant to be worth 25 mil, then I guess they're not too mad about it, but different teams will probably have paid different amounts. So it's a bit complicated, and we don't exactly know what this means for the other teams in the Overwatch League either. We just know this from the Overactive Media Toronto Defiant side, but you could expect that something similar might happen in the near future in the CDL as well. So that's, there's going to be big developments over the next couple of months on this one, I'm sure, because, look, it's the 5th year or whatever of the CDL now. We thought by year 5, either the CDL was going to be gone, which some of us believed, or it was going to be at a significantly different spot, or it had to be massively profitable for the investors to actually feel like their 5-year, 10-year plans were going to come true. So the chickens may have come home to roost to a certain extent. Let's talk about this drama then. So Ghosty the other day said that he was in hospital briefly. He was then out of hospital, and he also scrimmed. He was definitely unwell over the last several days. But actually, Doug goes one step further and says that as of pretty much yesterday, or maybe slightly the day before, he was still very much unwell and not feeling good at all. He says that Hex doesn't want him talking about it. He doesn't want people to know about it, which I can understand, because it doesn't really help Ghosty or OpTic or anything, people knowing that he is under the weather. But look, Doug reveals it on stream, so we're going to talk about it. Him and Ghosty, of course, have a good relationship. He's been talking to him every day, and it does seem to have been affecting Ghosty's practice over the last few days.
Season 4, Wiz, of course, also picked up by NRA.
Doesn't OpTic getting last lesson improve online and land isn't a huge difference? Well, I think that, I mean, I know that OpTic was sick. Dan's been going through it. Like, Dan still is sick from the event. And he's just not talking about it because Hector doesn't want him to. Because, like, it makes him look bad, But I can tell you, like, I talk to Dan every day. Like, he's still not feeling good. He still feels like shit.
This is not exactly a good sign for the OpTic Texas situation, right? As Ghosty said after the event, sickest I've been in a long time, no excuse for this weekend. We talked about this the other day, right? Because Scump basically said, well, I don't think he was ill against Florida. He was just ill against Thieves, which makes a different question. And then Hex was like, look, you can't be tweeting excuses when you're playing for OpTic Texas, which is also fair enough. So Ghosty over the last couple of days has calmed all this down, not basically said anything, not really streamed at all. But apparently he is still, at least as of yesterday, a couple of days ago, not feeling well at all, which is you know, well over a week now, getting on for a week of feeling under the weather and several days of probably compromised practice. He'll still be playing, he'll still be practicing, but, you know, probably not at the level that they would like to have him play at. So you can understand why Hex doesn't really want this to be public knowledge. Like, there's no one that really benefits from Ghosty tweeting out, oh, I'm still unwell, hopefully I can kick this soon. And in fairness, it's better to be ill now than it is to be ill at the event in a week or so's time, right? It is better to get it out the system, because who knows, right? People are going to go to that event, they're going to travel to Vegas, they're going to get unwell. It's better for it to happen now during the practice time, but it's obviously not ideal for the best possible practice. Like, if Ghosty's really feeling rough, after scrims, is he getting on doing extra VOD review? Is he getting on doing extra search and destroy practice? Probably not, and that's not necessarily his fault, but they're just, you know, feeling unwell right now. What I did want to mention is how often these OpTic guys, but also the players, get ill. I mean, it's pretty tragic. The LAN flu exists. Like, honestly, people go to the LAN events, they get ill. Thousands of people there, it happens. It happens every single event. But I did want to say that there's this guy, Filip Kovalev, who works for NRG, and he is their chef. This is their Valorant team's chef, and he's making dishes like this. And I haven't eaten yet today. It looks absolutely beautiful, but there's plenty of dishes like this that go around, and this is what he's cooking for these guys, and they take their health seriously over there. I'm not saying that OpTic have to hire a chef necessarily, but I'm just saying that what the life that the COD pros live is not necessarily conducive to being healthy all of the time. I think it's sleep as well that's a massive one. Like, the pros, I don't know how often they really think about sleep. I know people always say to me, like, oh, Rab, you can't sleep, you're doing videos all the time. But, like, look, I'm in bed by 11:30. I'm getting my 8 hours sleep every single night, as long as I can. If there's event weekends on, okay, the sleep suffers a bit. But most days, I'm getting a good sleep. And also on a pretty good circadian rhythm when I can, right? Like, sleeping at the same time every night if you can. So, you know, there's other things to think about here, but it's just like a lot of the things the pros do with the foods that they eat and just getting, you know, takeaway all the time. The diets probably aren't optimal. The sleep plans probably aren't optimal. Are the exercise plans for these players optimal as well? Because my opinion is that if, you know, players aren't as healthy as they could be, that's going to take a toll on their consistency and stuff over time. I mean, there's just, okay, I've got to stop looking at this food. It's just way too good. But this is what NRG are up to. So, you know, just a pointer there maybe for some of these CDL teams. I think he also might cook the food for their League of Legends team as well, but yeah, beautiful stuff. Anyway, just before we close out here from Zuma, these are his final teams. There could be some changes here still, but these are the teams for Friday's $10,000 S&D tournament. Really cool stuff, and these are some banger teams. We have Drazah, Envoy, Proloot. iLLeY is returning, baby. I'm going to be there to see this one, and I mean, some other super stacked teams, it's got to be said. You've got two of the OpTic guys on this team, two of the OpTic guys on this team, so Ghosty is going to play. There was also the reformation of the old Boston team with Methods, Awakening, Nero, Vivid. Apparently now that's not the case anymore, and Vivid might not be playing. We'll see in a second. But yeah, loads of other really stacked teams here. So looking forward to this one massively. If you guys want to pause to see what's going on, they're looking for 16 teams in this one, Zuma is. And apparently either Vivid had to bail or something. So it's going to be Methods, Wake, Nero need one for the tourney this Friday. But very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.